Division 1 men's final was between Longjetty and Newcastle, and it wasn't decided until the last 20 seconds. It was an exciting match all the way through, with some excellent skills being shown. The scores were locked at 4 goals all, with Newcastle in the blue and Longjetty in the red searching for the match-winning goal. And it came in the dying moments of the game, with Longjetty capitalising on their chance to knock home the winner and wrap up the New South Wales Championship.
Last night, the Sport of Kings dished out the right royal treatment for NBN's Telethon 89, proving when a good cause is to benefit, money is no barrier. More than 350 racing folk turned out for the Black Tie Affair at the Seabull Townhouse, among them some of the biggest names in Australian racing. Entertainer Greg Anderson turned on a sparkling performance aboard his magnificent quarter-horse stallion, proving to the racing men horses can be used for more than just speed. Later on, Telethon favourite Colleen Hewitt also sang up a storm. But fun aside, the night was really all about raising money, and soon the crowd got down to the serious business of bidding on the 29 items up for grabs. Among them, everything from a world trip to a his and hers pair of BMWs. And from the opening bid it was clear that people really meant business, with fierce competition for all items and most far surpassing their value.
15 twice! Do I hear 15? I do hear $15,500.
The BMWs naturally were popular. His went for a mere $141,000, hers just $72,000. But the big money of the night went into a nomination to the great sire Masque, donated by the Masque Syndicate. That brought an amazing $165,000. The final tally from the night was just over $400,000, almost double what organisers had originally expected. 25% of that is to be added to the telethon coffers, and with the Equine Research Foundation to hold another auction in May during Scone's Horse Week with another quarter for telethon, NBN Managing Director Joe Sweeney just couldn't keep the smile off his face, though perhaps Greg Anderson's words best reflected the gratitude of everyone involved in telethon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The big front rower was back into training this afternoon, relieved his reputation had been cleared of foul play. In last weekend's torrid encounter with Balmain, Johnston got the shock of his career when, after tackling Tiger Michael Pobji, referee Bill Harrigan gave him his marching orders.
3 of us went in to tackle Pobji as he ran from dummy half, and as we're getting up, we only had 11 men on the field, and tried to slow the game down a bit, and I kept my hand on his head just to hold him down a bit, which is illegal, I guess. I found out last night it is illegal, and I got a warning over that, but there was no malice involved.
The trip to Sydney had been a nerve-wracking experience, and even though he was innocent, the league hearing may have meant the end of the season.
Very anxious to get it over and done with, but I had pretty good support with Mark Sargent and Tony Butterfield, and they were there with me. It was a lot better than if you just go by yourself, and so that took a fair bit of the pressure off. We had a few jokes and that, otherwise I would have been probably feeling pretty off, I'd say, by the time I got in there.
Johnston's result was good. However, under-21 player Mark Mulligan was not so lucky, getting 2 weeks suspension on a kneeing charge. After appalling conditions for the Easter Juniors tournament at Cessnock, organisers were thrilled with the sunshine at Toukley. The country champion golfers travelled from all parts of the state for the 18-hole event. 17-year-old Aaron Burns from Gunnedah, with a handicap of 3, and former Mid-North Coast champion Kempsey's Mark Day were both hitting the ball strongly. Dale Linniston was favoured in the girls, especially with some expert advice from boyfriend and caddy Wayne Stewart. It's the tournament's third year, and with so many young players hitting the mark, competition looks good for the years ahead.
Over 70 Hunter PSA members were unanimous in their decision to impose work bans from tomorrow, and they said they are prepared to walk out on strike for more than a week over the closure of Newcastle, Belmont and Singleton offices as part of a national campaign against cost-saving changes. They claim around 30 positions will be lost, plus after-hours crisis centres at Maitland and the Central Coast, and that families most in need will be penalised.
In this particular instance, we're looking at the child abuse, we're looking at the homeless children, all the refuge centres, and it just goes on. So it's the needy people that are going to be the ones that are suffering from these cuts.
A vote of no confidence in Virginia Chadwick, Minister for Family and Community Services, and the government was passed unanimously by workers who claim there has been no consultation over budget cutbacks. While in Newcastle earlier this month, Mrs Chadwick denied any jobs would be lost, and today her office reiterated the denial.
What is going to happen in the Hunter is that some of the smaller offices, which have a relatively light workload and which are on easy traffic routes with other major offices, the staff at those two offices, namely Belmont and Singleton, are going to be amalgamated into larger adjacent offices. There is going to be no loss of staff, no loss of service.
Today she said the welfare workers should be assisting clients and not taking action over buildings and phantom positions not funded in the budget.
It was a mini cyclone, came straight across the water. Over the top of that two-storey place.
Oh, that's it.
They've been wanting to interview you.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
In the Hunter metropolitan hospitals will be harder hit than those in country areas. At the Royal Newcastle, 1,000 workers will walk out, forcing several areas to shut down. It will be the second time in as many weeks that elective surgery has been cancelled. Last time it was due to the Legionnaires scare. A skeleton staff of union members will ensure emergency services at all Hunter hospitals. Like the others, the Royal will rely on volunteers, mainly pink ladies, to serve the meals. Gosford Hospital has made a community appeal for around 60 volunteers, but response has been described as slow. But in contrast, Singleton Hospital reports too many volunteers. Tomorrow, cleaning services will be axed. There will be no porters and only a token clerical service. Tomorrow, most of these clinics will be closed. Normally up to 150 patients would be seen each day at this Chester Medical Clinic alone. As from Wednesday, patients will be booked back in on a priority basis. Unlike other areas in the state, the Hunter Area Health Board, headed by Dr Owen James, does not plan to contract out for services.
The Hunter Area Health Service has not in any way indicated or expressed an interest in contracting out of services. Our best advice is the other way. We would rather corporatise and perform our own services and provide services for others.
But the union is not assured.
Well, we don't really want to go on strike, but we feel that we've got no other alternative. This is the only alternative we've got to show to the government that we want to preserve the hospital standards as they are now.
AWS's biggest public relations day in the Hunter so far began early with a breakfast for civic and business leaders at the Master Builders Centre. Decision makers from across the region heard from Doug Rosa just what a win for AWS would mean for the Hunter. AWS says 2,000 jobs will be created directly and more than twice that number indirectly. $100 million will be spent creating a long-term high-tech naval shipbuilding industry. If AWS is successful, they'll gain a contract worth $5 billion and one of the best views in the region. The State Dockyard plays an integral part in the consortium's plans. Today, the old administration building on the city end officially became its home base. Many of those present at the breakfast also attended the opening, performed by the head of the consortium's Dutch connection, Dr. Ton de Smit. Dr. Smit is chairman of Royal Skeld, the Dutch shipbuilding company constructing the M-class frigate chosen by AWS. He says Carrington Slipways and the consortium have the ability to successfully build the ultra-modern frigates.
I believe the speed in which they are working and the technology they are using is a good basis to be further developed together with the State Dockyard to have sufficient facilities to be able to work out the M-frigate program.
Many of AWS's Sydney staff will soon be transferred to Newcastle, making it the focal point of the consortium's frigate push. Mr Rosa took the opportunity today to hit out at rival consortium Amicon. He says Newcastle should not be fooled by the Victorian consortium's promises of work.
The hull is only 12% of the work, and that's the type of work that AMEC are offering. There's just no comparison between the grade and the work that is being offered, or that AWS will do here in relation to what AMEC are doing here. And as far as I'm concerned, there is just no consolation prize. It's the difference between winning lotto and being one number off winning lotto.
Newcastle City Council shocked the nation early this year when it announced its controversial decision to ban smoking in the city's restaurants. It sparked much heated debate and interest from other councils, but since then it hasn't gone much further. And at a meeting last night it was discovered it could be many months yet before the ban actually materialises, if ever. Town Clerk Barry Lewis explained today that the Local Government Act concerned was not considered strong enough to support such a ban, and so now Council must go to the state government via a local member to seek a change in legislation. So Council is to prepare a report on the issue and vote next month on whether to take the ban that far. Just what way Council is likely to vote, Mr Lewis was unwilling to say, but he did admit the development was a setback for the ban and that the delay could see the case lose some of its momentum. But Alderman Don Geddes, the driving force behind the anti-smoking move, refused to accept that. He said the issue was still as strong as ever and that its supporters would not let it die.
No, the case won't lose its momentum because the public wants it to be achieved. And there's no way that I'm going to allow it to lose its momentum. There's no way many people out in the community are going to allow it to lose its momentum. It has to proceed.
He also confidently predicted Council would not back out and that the ban would go to the state government and that it would be accepted.
I'm quite confident that the people who supported the motion in the initial stage will continue to support it. Look, we're not walking backwards, we're walking forward. And as far as I'm concerned, the fight's only just started.
Delegates from New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania held their 3 days of talks at the Newcastle City Hall, discussing how best to approach the future in an industry racked by the most turbulent 18 months in its history. All sessions were closed to outsiders, but the Federation's National President, John Maitland, went public once final resolutions were in place.
We're going to look at whether or not our current structure in the organisation is appropriate to the 1990s and the 21st century, whether or not we should retain districts or whether or not there ought to be more focus on national issues. We're going to look at actually restructuring the industry ourselves in terms of career paths, multi-skilling, broadbanding, all those sorts of things. We're going to push forward with amalgamation with the Federated Mine Mechanics and in essence develop an industry which has one union and that union suiting the purposes and serving the purposes of its membership.
The Federation sought and received guidance from overseas. The final address today was given by the International President of the United Mine Workers of America, Richard Trumka. Mr Trumka confirmed the formation of an alliance between his union and the Miners' Federation, saying that since they compete in the same market and in some cases have even the same employer, their problems are common and solutions the same. And besides, the United Mine Workers of America already covers all workers in the mining industry there.
I think important for us as labour leaders in the United States and Australia to be able to coordinate our efforts so that workers here and workers in the States don't suffer or pay the price for bad management or management mistakes in a market that is rather hostile right now.
So what you're saying is you haven't come here just to talk, you've also come to listen?
Indeed we have. We don't have all the answers. We don't think that we have all the answers, and we came to listen, and I had a great time at the conference. I learned a good bit at the conference. I learned that our problems are similar and our solutions can be similar also.
Get it.
It's been a struggle for the high-flying Knights this week to get their feet back on the ground after belting the Sea Eagles last week at the International Sports Centre. However, coach Alan McMahon is acutely aware that the boys from the mountains are as hard to beat at home as the Knights are.
Penrith side is a formidable outlook, particularly their forwards are very strong and experienced, and their back line too is with Chris Mortimer and guys like Greg Alexander there as well. It's going to be a strong, hard game.
The form player for the Knights has been halfback Steve Fulmer, but he's out with a virus. Robbie McCormick moves to half and Glenn Frendo comes into the centres, a move that McMahon hopes won't disrupt the team too much.
Hopefully not, but certainly Steve's form over the last couple of weeks has been very good, and Robbie's in the centres, although he's although he's more at home, probably around closer to the action at half 5/8, has been very good as well. Glennie Frendo's game in reserve grade last week I thought was excellent, and it's the sort of running game that we've been looking from Glenn, and he deserved his reinstatement. So hopefully we won't lose anything, but realistically, we've got some guys in new positions, and it makes it a little harder, but I think they'll handle it.
In other matches on the weekend, Cronulla meet Eastern Suburbs tomorrow, and then on Sunday, Canterbury play St George, Western Suburbs meet Brisbane, Parramatta and Balmain clash, the Gold Coast travel to Canberra, South and Illawarra engage each other, and Manly need a win against Norths. While it's round 4 of the Winfield Cup, the Newcastle Rugby League Premiership finally gets underway tonight with the battle between Maitland and the Toronto Workers. But the clash of round 1 is here at Townsend Oval when South Newcastle and Lakes United, the two grand finals from last year, do battle. For South's coach Paul Merle, he's really glad the season's finally underway.
It's been a long pre-season, and I know the players are dying for a bit of remuneration and a bit of credit for their form,
And for Merlo, a first-up win against Lakes United is of vital importance.
We want to start the competition off on a solid note, and by beating Lakes, it'll just start our foundation for the forthcoming season.
Having a look at the 4-round, Maitland and Toronto Workers clash tonight. Then on Sunday, West play North Nelson Bay, Cessnock to play Waratah, Central to play Curry, and South to play Lakes United.
2 days ago, the state government announced Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong ports were to become autonomous. For Newcastle, that means the Hunter Port Corporation will handle its affairs. It also means the future development of the port lies largely with private enterprise. Today on ABC Radio, Dr Stuart Joy said Newcastle would not attract the turnover to make it an attractive or viable proposition for private development. Afterwards, an indignant state member for Newcastle, George Keegan, hit back, saying Dr Stewart was uninformed on the port's potential. He said Newcastle had been subsidising Sydney and Botany Bay for years, but now it was its own master, it would be able to promote fully its facilities, position and ease of operation.
We're going to find more and more product coming through this port, and this will bring more and more ships into the harbour. Now there will be a need for a bulk handling port facilities, a wharf that will handle containers for all types of merchandise.
Supporting Mr Keegan was Acting Port Manager Jeff Connell, who said the Hunter Port Authority would be doing all in its power to make Newcastle attractive to private enterprise, and he believed it would take up the offer. He said the port wouldn't become a major force overnight, but in a few years could very well be the busiest port in Australia. Dr Joy had predicted Newcastle would not receive new container handling facilities as were hoped for, noting that much of the time now the present container crane did lie idle. But Mr Keegan says that's all a thing of the past.
The future holds bigger and brighter things for this port. Autonomy will bring more business, without a doubt. And I'm quite certain that everybody that's involved in the shipping industry recognise the fact that we will have the need of a containerised facility.
The Shirite Maru is the 601st vessel to load at Kooragang in its 4 years and 11 months of operation. The ship will take on a total of 130,000 tonnes in 6 separate cargoes. The average size cargo loaded by the record-breaking facility is 83,000 tonnes. But later this evening, the 50 millionth tonne will be loaded quietly and efficiently and without celebration, like all the coal before it.
The Newcastle NIB Falcons have advanced to the zone final of the Kmart Australian Classic by thrashing Canberra last night. Led by a superb shooting performance by Michael Johnson, the Falcons scored a 119-97 win and will now clash with the Brisbane Bullets tonight at the State Sports Centre. Locally, the Kennard Hunters notched a 20-point win over the New South Wales under-20 side in the Classic at Broadmeadow Stadium. The young side were pressed early but then swung into action with their more senior players taking a grip on the game. The final of the local classic is at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon.